Good morning, guys. Welcome to today's training, which is really an impromptu training. I had a different topic in mind, but my body's like, I don't want to talk about that. It wants to talk about this, and this is kind of a nebulous concept at first. So let's see how well I do in helping you guys understand it. So, concept is trusting your feedback, and it's disconnecting you from your truth. Okay. Now, feedback is valuable, okay, but not all the time. Feedback needs to be qualified. Feedback needs to be scrutinized by you. You need to be more deliberate about whom you trust and the feedback that they're giving you. Does their feedback benefit you, or does their feedback benefit them? That kind of thing. Oftentimes, especially with people dealing with codependency, feedback is it's like the compass. It's the map. It's the guide that people are using to make their decisions, to shape themselves, to determine whether or not they're showing up in a healthy way, or they're doing a good job, or they're being enough, that kind of thing. And this is how we, if we're the codependent, allow someone else to influence and even manipulate and control us. So we've got to become more discerning about whose influence, whose feedback we're trusting. And we need to start becoming more skeptical of that feedback and start listening internally to our own voice about what we think about, one, their feedback, but two, their behavior. Okay, so when we get into the realm of gaslighting and being gaslit by another individual, we're talking about being made to feel crazy. We're being turned against our own awareness, right? Our own experience, our own feelings, our own perspective on what was going on. And this gaslighting causes us to distrust ourselves. Well, automatically we start to trust them. We start to think that they have the superior or more accurate point of view. And that is where we get highly manipulated. We get disconnected from ourselves, and we're led deeper and deeper into the maze of being controlled by another human being. So the way out of this is to start questioning people's claims. If someone comes up to me and says, Marshall, you're being a real asshole, I'm gonna like, okay, so please point out to me where I'm behaving that way. And if they can't sit down and literally, and I mean this, guys, enumerate the ways in which I was being that way, I'm going to be like, well, I don't know what to tell you. You might feel I'm that way because of how I talk or what I talk about or the claims I make. But those things don't necessarily equal me being an asshole. That just is something you don't like, right? That's one way. If someone came to me and said, Marshall, when you do this, I feel hurt. So, Marshall, when you, when you don't respond to me in a quick and timely fashion, I feel hurt. A codependent would probably take that as a valid form of feedback. They're like, oh, I got to respond faster. I'd actually put the brakes on that and say, okay, what I hear you saying is that you want to understand, or you would like, what I hear you saying is you want me to respond faster. What do you feel when I respond faster? What does that bring to your life? And then maybe they say, well, I feel like I'm a priority in your life. I'm like, okay, so you want to feel like you're a priority in my life. So here's some ways I can do that, because I can't guarantee I'm going to respond fast every time, because, again, I would like you to understand my context is that I've got a busy life. I've got things going on. I run a business, yada, yada, yada. And I would also like you to know that I value you. I appreciate you. I care about you. You are a priority. So here's what I'm willing to do. Here's what I can do. Here's what's realistic for me. And then we could discuss those things and see what lines up. See how we can make that work. See, that's a compassionate, grounded, connected approach to dealing with feedback. But notice I didn't necessarily agree with their feedback that I wasn't being proactive or valuing them. I instead found out the need they had and then connected with that and validated it, because that was also genuine for me. Sometimes people will be like, I want to connect with you. I want to be your friend. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I'm like, I'm not feeling that. I barely know you. Let's get to know each other. And they're like, but, and I'm like, well then, you're gonna have to deal with it. But you're being selfish. No, I'm not. No, selfishness is you demanding me do something for you, and I'm not gonna do that. Selfishness is, you're not selfish when you say no, guys. Selfishness is not a factor of saying no. Selfishness is expecting someone else to be, do, or have, or give you something you don't have any right to. Relationship is fundamentally consensual. It's a privilege. And so selfishness occurs when we try to violate that privilege and assert a right or an expectation on someone else rather than create an agreement. If that makes sense. All right, so back to trusting their feedback is disconnecting you from your truth. You have an internal voice. You have an internal wisdom. It's called felt sense awareness. And this is where your no shows up. This is where your yes shows up. This is where you find you. And if we're preoccupied with pleasing other people, with regulating their feelings and trying to get them to like us so we feel better about ourselves, we're going to internalize their feedback as truth, and then we're going to react to that and create our life according to their standard. Guys, other people's feedback is largely irrelevant. I know that might sound cold, but if you're not in an intrinsic relationship with them, or you haven't actually done something that's violated consent or boundary, or led to them feeling hurt because you did something that was legitimately hurtful, feedback generally isn't going to be useful for you. Even positive feedback, you have to be careful with. Because there's two things that are, well, one's the drug and one's the dread with codependency. Approval's the drug and rejection's the dread. And these are both forms of feedback. And if we're hooked on that feedback, we want that, we need that. It's our little emotional cocaine. Ooh, we're gonna have some real fun there, right? Because then we can get manipulated. We'll chase after people. We're gonna be spilling ourselves everywhere and trying to get people to love and like us, right? But if rejection happens, then we cave in on ourselves. Because what happens with this feedback is we internalize it as a truth about who we are. This is also why in an abusive relationship, you feel unworthy, you feel shameful, you feel not enough, because you think of their feedback, their abuse is deserved. You think it's justified. You assume that you earned that, rather than tuning into your voice and actually discerning that behavior hurts me. I don't like that. That has to stop. See, your voice is going to stand up for you. It's going to defend you. It's going to advocate for you. It's not going to internalize an external feedback as truth. Okay? This is why when people tell me they feel shameful, I ask them to slow down and listen to what's behind that shame. What's the pain? What's the fear? What's the need? Because the shame is an internalization of an external judgment or feedback. But there's a real need there, a real pain that deserves to be seen and nurtured and validated. Okay? This is how trusting feedback unconditionally harms us. This is where we lose connection with our voice. This is where we lose connection with our value and our vision. This is where we become mired in systems of manipulation. Yes, thank you, Lori. And yeah, religious systems. If people are telling you who you are, run. Because they have no business telling you who you are. They can identify attributes about you, like, I think you're brilliant. I think you're brilliant people. You're just magical, and you're full of wonder and capability and brilliance. But who you are, that's your business, not mine. Okay? And typically religious and cultic systems do that. They tell you who you are. They don't allow you to discover who you are, define that, and shape that. I.e., you're taking their feedback, internalizing it as a truth, and then acting that out as though it is truth, even though it isn't. Or it's likely not, at least. You might find some things people give you are true, but you determine that. Come on, this is your autonomy. This is your power. So in codependency, we rely on the other person. It's called external orientation. We rely on them to guide us to us. Now, this isn't actually abnormal, especially if you are a toddler or a child or a teenager. You're looking for that feedback because you're still going through a process called individuation or differentiation. It's where you're discovering who you are and understanding your relationship to others in sameness and difference. But as an adult, hell no, guys, no. You don't need to be seeking their feedback, but codependency has us do that so that we can survive the threat of being thrown away. So if you want to know more about the discard trauma, check out yesterday's training on that, because that was really that. This whole week we've really referenced that. So ultimately, guys, feedback needs to be scrutinized. Feedback needs to be put on a shelf and analyzed. Does this feedback resonate with me? Does this feedback line up with my principles? Am I in violation of my own values, my own integrity? If so, the feedback might have some accuracy. We can take it and utilize it to improve our own internalized integrity, our own expression of our values and person. But we don't need to use it to define who we are, and we don't need to use it to regulate who we are with other people. We need to be skeptical about it. I'm going to put a big, big red flag in front of you right now. If you're with a person who routinely criticizes your boundaries, who undermines and diminishes or demeans your feelings, who causes you to question your sanity, who criticizes you, who leaves you feeling hurt and empty and confused, how can I put this without using crass language? Screw their feedback. They aren't worth the consideration because they don't care about who you are. When you want to qualify someone's feedback, you need to ask the question is, has this person demonstrated that they care about my well-being? If you can answer yes to that, then you can say, does this feedback improve my well-being? Does it serve me or does it serve them? Because unhealthy people are going to give you feedback that serves them, that feeds them supply. Healthy people are going to give you feedback that serves you and your well-being and your expertise, your expansion. Okay? So if you're dealing with a toxic person, walk. You don't need to listen to that. You don't need to internalize it. It's not trustworthy. It's abuse. And if we internalize abuse, you're going to feel shame. You're going to feel guilt. You're going to feel a weirdness in your body, like something's off. This doesn't make any sense. I gotta walk from this. You gotta get in tune with that. Okay, guys? So, there you go. That's today's impromptu training. Start getting skeptical about the feedback you're getting. And if you're getting feedback from people who have abused you, you can safely discard it because it's useless. It isn't the truth. It's not reality. It's not a fact. I highly recommend leaving those relationships. That's my recommendation. You have to make your decision about those. That's in your bucket. It's interesting because I'm frequently attacked for that. But usually it's by toxic people. Oh, you're telling people to leave me. Well, no, but I am telling people to leave toxic people. So if you're a toxic person, then maybe, maybe I'll look at that. Some funny things with that. I always love how narcissistic and toxic people tell on themselves that way. Fun stuff. So yeah, that's it for today, guys. I appreciate you. Remember that you're worth knowing, loving, and keeping. Be gentle with yourself. Be kind with yourself. And believe. Open up to the possibility that you really are worth it. Okay? I'll see you guys in next week's trainings. We're going to talk about trauma and how it influences our value, voice, and vision. And if there's a topic you want me to shoot at, just comment on my wall, comment below, whatever you want. And I'll be glad to talk on that. Thank you, guys. Again, be safe out there, and I will see you next week.